Like when you're doing a deadlift, and what he's basically explaining is like, you know, not starting from a flat and then all of a sudden you're doing this, but also rounding your back isn't this. It's protracted. What is up? It's your boy Johnny Street Vibe, BB Promise and Tell Like It Is. Welcome back to another episode of Coaching Up. Today with my boy Justin Lee. Top national level powerlifter he's gonna meet in February. He's going for, what numbers are you going for now?
So for the squat, I'm gonna go for around a 600 to 620. Bench, 395 to 405. And then deadlift, things go well, 770 to 800.
Yeah, and he's 6 foot, so this is an anomaly. So yesterday we had this really cool event where we had bench press, deadlifts, and I saw some form that we can coach up a little bit, but there's some differences between doing a deadlift for those who are powerlifting and those who are just trying to build muscle. We're gonna go over that really quick. I'm gonna organically go through some cues on how I coach a lot of athletes on how to deadlift. Most of the time they're deadlifting for parasthetics. And then for the most part, I just think most time people should deadlift with a straight back anyway, just for pure safety and healthy spine. Your opinion?
Yep.
Yeah?
I didn't catch half of that, to be honest. Well, first of all, if you're rounding your back, you have to make sure that you're very tight, meaning that like once you start pulling, you don't start with a neutral back and then you start like twerking your back up and down mid-rep. It's not really safe. I mean, at any point in a deadlift, there's gonna be a risk of injury. But if you're pulling and the form's changing as you pull, then you're exposing yourself to more injury, or more risk of injury to be safe. I'll show you the wrong way to round your back first. Okay, the wrong way is to start ultra flat, grab the bar, thinking you're neutral back, and then after lower back starts shaking, and then you start bending more, and then lock out. The correct way to round, if you don't want to get injured, is to get everything tight and pre-round before actually pulling. So if you're gonna round, most people like to start rounded, and then get tight in the starting position. You don't want the round to increase as you start pulling. I think a lot of people assume that lower back rounding is bad, but any type of rounding that is not kind of like stiff when you start is gonna create problems. So if you're gonna round your lower back, you also wanna make sure that it's not like people don't preach around your lower back, but you could get away with it if you practice it with like lighter load. At the end of the day, it's gonna be dependent on the load that you're pushing. So if you're not used to it and you have no sense of consistency, it's really easy to mess up your back. So what I do is, for me, I try to localize the rounding to the upper back / thoracic region.
Thoracic spine.
Exactly. And so I'm able to get a really nice round. And actually, I'm very flexible in my upper back, even before I started powerlifting.
Yeah.
So if you look on the side, I'm set up, and I'm getting ready for a pull, lock everything in, start pulling, and then here is when I finish the lift. I'm still rounded when I finish the lift. It's just, everything is tight. There's not a better word to say than stay tight with it, which everyone's like tight when you start deadlifting.
So, okay, what I've got from you is basically, and what I coach as well too, there's a difference between rounding your back and having an active protracted thoracic spine.
Exactly.
Right, so what I'm saying about that is like when you're doing a deadlift, and what he's basically explaining is like, you know, not starting from a flat and then all of a sudden you're doing this, but also rounding your back isn't this. It's protracting. I'm still tight in my back, I'm tight in my core, and I'm protracting. So when I'm here at the bottom, when I'm lifting, I am rounded, but I'm protracted, but I'm still tight in my lower back, and I'm tight in my core. Exactly. So that's what people I think are misunderstanding a lot when they talk about, like when you see the differences in a rounded back and then a flat back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fun fact, when I started lifting, I was super terrified of deadlifting. I didn't deadlift for the first like 5 months of lifting. And the reason I did it was to compete in like a local powerlifting meet for my university. And when I started learning, I actually learned with very flat back deadlifting. I was so scared of it because I was thinking any bit of rounding, you're gonna get snapped up, you're gonna get injured. So I used to pull like this. And I'd start pulling and then my hips would raise, then I'd pull, which is the main reason why a lot of people that are like lanky and don't have the greatest portions for deadlifts will automatically introduce some rounding because it will shorten the range of motion to put you in a better position for some people, especially if you're around like 6 feet and above. Yeah. Because if you think about it, like the shorter you are, the better position you can get with the position because bar height is more advantageous. I'll stand here. So that angle's good. If you're like 6'7", you're gonna have some sort of rounding, or you're gonna be squatting some of that weight up if you try really forcing the position. It's like doing a deficit. The lower you get, the hips have to go a little bit lower and your hips are gonna do more work and then you're gonna start pulling. So you start with a little bit higher. The difference, like if I show a difference between flat and straight, if I really get flat, there's more work on the hips. Then it kind of goes with posterior chain. Main difference is that my hips are lower hips are higher with the upper back rounding, which I'm naturally stronger in my upper back / lower back, so it's more a benefit for me. So here, start with higher hips. It's gonna be the hip height, that's the main difference.
If we want to be optimal as a power lifter, like if we're going for PRs and trying to get the most we can out of the lift, what you're doing round the back is what you want to do 100% more than having a flat back.
In my scenario, I actually don't preach rounding back for most people because it's very difficult to learn, especially if you're a beginner. So even if they do like a neutral back deadlift, if you can learn to get that round position and it's just natural, like as you go heavier, you naturally have a little bit of bend in your back, then that's probably a sign that you are stronger. Like a bend in the sense where it's not like you start pulling, it's like the torquing in your upper spine. More like you pull, you start flat, you pull, and you naturally just have a little bit of a curvature. Then you probably benefit from training with that position from the start.
So basically, when your fascial spine is bent here, if this can be in this position, you know, protracted.
Exactly.
And you can still pull without this, then you are strong, because eventually those who are weak can't really necessarily achieve doing this without this being rolled as well.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. If you can't get in the positions, you shouldn't even bother with it, to be honest too, like lower back. Most people don't have that problem though. There's some scenarios too where people have lower back rounding, they're still fine. At the end of the day, it's gonna be more dependent on the loads that you push with and the consistency of your reps. So if you're just grinding reps out with zero consistency, even if you have a neutral spine, you can still mess your back up pretty bad, even though it doesn't matter with deadlifts.
100%.
To make sure that it's load dependent and also consistent. So regardless of flat back or rounded, the main cue is that the deadlift is not just a pull, meaning that you don't just want to start ripping the weight off the floor and blocking out right away. The deadlift, especially conventional deadlift, it's kind of building momentum by locking your legs out to get a stretch reflex, then press with your legs like a leg press, then a pull. It's a two-part movement where you're pressing, then locking out. So pressing, then pulling with the quads. Totally. And the reason you want to do that, for example, if you make a deadlift just to pull, if you look at a side profile, this is what it looks like, because you're just pulling. Versus pressing, then pulling. The difference of a little bit of quad drive in the bottom of the lift.
Yeah. And I coach that. So what I basically, like kind of cues I give is pretend this bar isn't going anywhere and you're trying to drive yourself into the floor.
Yeah.
Right. So those are my little cues I give. Like foot placement, I'll just like, you know, what easy one is like, I'll tell people turn a little circle and jump in the air. Right.
Exactly.
Naturally, that's where your hips are going to align.
Yep.
That's pretty easy for you to just line up. And then getting close to the bar, you know, like shoelaces, maybe close. If you want to, you can go on, flush on.
Oh, for placement?
Please, yeah.
For me, I personally like where I feel, because if you go too close, the biggest thing is that when you start pulling, it's gonna be the alignment of your shoulders. The weight's gonna be behind you. Naturally, it's gonna oscillate forward. Yeah. So you know you're too close. If you start pulling here, it's gonna whip out a little bit. So, and you're really gonna see it when you go heavy. Yeah. You're not gonna see it with like a plate. So as you go heavier, if you start deadlifting, your arms are gonna kind of rotate forward, and that's when you know it's too close. So you want in the midfoot, where your shoulders aligned with your back as well. So it looks a little too close. Let's say it'd be like
so shoelace.
It also depends on your upper body too, like how long you are.
Torso length. Femur,
exactly,
tibia.
All that stuff.
So all those things make a difference in how you can perform a deadlift.
Exactly, because you just want a linear bar path. Well, some people aren't biomechanically gifted to have that.
Yes.
Like me, I'm on squats. I'm not gifted in ankle mobility and I have long femurs, so I squat. It's kind of like a little bit of a step back, then a press up, just because of femur length and ankle mobility. Deadlift usually is pretty straight, the bar path.
Cool. So there you go. Guys, we have our different, so things you guys can take away from that is, number one, if you can't get into a flat back position in the first place, or even control the load, you should be doing this anyway. Now, if you can't have a flat back, then your flat back should stay flat back and shooting around. There's the basic points taken away from that.
If I was able to flat back deadlift and have a really efficient bar path, for sure I would. But usually when I start pulling, and when I want to pull heavy, I feel my hips unravel, and then after everything feels looser and more dangerous. Yeah. So that's why I prefer to stay a little bit tighter on the upper back and then keep everything kind of tense, tight.
Cool, yeah. And that is it for the video today, guys. I gotta thank Justin for giving me his time today to work out with me and share some good info and insight on power deadlift form and technique. And we had an awesome workout, so thank you so much, man, for this.
Thank you, Johnny, for having me.
So we're definitely gonna do this again. Another fellow Canadian that's, you know, coming up in the ranks, and so I recommend you guys give him a follow.
Oh, thank you so
great
much,
person to watch, good person to look up to, a great head and shoulder. I co-sign this man. So Anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, and make sure you guys, if you guys use any of the cues, make sure you guys let me know in the comment section below. I know you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and share. You know, become the tell like it is, transparent, vulnerable truth. And for coaching, johnysheet.com. If you want to know more about the coaching, guys, book yourself a 15 or 30-minute consult. At the end of the consult, I deduct off any package that you pick. And also hit the description below for those discount codes and promo codes that help save life or change life for the better, like 10% off BlueStarNutraceuticals.com. Anyway, I have my buddy on Instagram. What's it?
Just Liam. Also, highly recommend Johnny Coaching. Amazing guy. Showed me a lot, stuff that I wouldn't have done by myself as a power builder. So definitely keep watching his stuff. You have a lot to learn. He's an amazing guy, amazing trainer. Highly recommend.
Appreciate it, man. Well, guys, add us on Instagram, add us on TikTok, add us on everything. Send me your progress pics, your training pics, and your video clips, and we will repost it for you, because you know how it is. Iron sharpens iron, progressive overload your life. In the meantime, keep dream chasing. Peace.